Hey everyone, it's Trevor Barroero, Black Swamp artist and principal percussionist of the Tucson Symphony Orchestra. In this video, we're going to take a look at the fundamentals of playing the slapstick, sometimes called the whip, by using Black Swamp's brand new Overture Series slapstick. The Overture Series is a line of entry-level instruments designed by concert percussionists with a sound specifically intended for band and orchestra performance. This slapstick delivers a truly professional sound and feel at a price point that's accessible for schools and developing percussionists. We'll talk about setup, safety, how to control dynamics, how to get consistent timing, and then we'll look at some of the most iconic slapstick moments in the repertoire. Now, as I said, this is the Overture Series slapstick from Black Swamp Percussion. It features 20 by 4-inch soundboards made from 12mm birch plywood with dual offset air vents. The ply construction is important. It helps the soundboard stay straight and resist warping over the life of the instrument. The handles are made from solid maple and they're intentionally oversized. That may seem like a small detail, but it's actually a huge improvement over many slapsticks on the market. I've seen multiple musicians pinch their fingers inside slapsticks that don't have handles, and it's not pretty. It actually happened to my own music director in 2022. We were doing a fun performance of Sleigh Ride, and he came up to the top riser, grabbed a slapstick that didn't have handles, went to play the whip, and pinched his finger on the inside. It was not good. So these oversized handles keep your hands safely on the outside of the soundboards and give you much better control. The heavy gauge hinge provides smooth and quick action and ensures consistent contact between the boards, which gives you that classic whip-like crack that we all expect. Now, before we play anything with this instrument, we actually do need to talk about safety. The slapstick is one of the loudest percussion instruments that we use in band and orchestra. Therefore, I strongly recommend using hearing protection when playing the slapstick, and always be aware of where this instrument is in relation to your colleagues. So for holding the slapstick, most players will hold the slapstick in a V shape in front of their body with their hands mostly equidistant from the center of the torso. I find this position gives me the most control and the clearest sense of symmetry with the instrument, but you should absolutely experiment a little to find what feels most natural for your body. You can experiment with having the slapstick horizontally or more at an angle. The slapstick is also one of the most visual instruments we play. And this is one of the rare cases where it's actually appropriate and effective to use the theatrical motion of the instrument. So in iconic moments like Sleigh Ride or Britain's Young Person's Guide to the Orchestra, I absolutely think it's okay to slowly open the slapstick up, hold it up in the air so the audience can see it, because that visual anticipation is part of the effect of the instrument. That being said, we never want the theatrics to interfere with the timing of our notes. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions about slapstick is that dynamics come from how wide you open it. If I open the slapstick all the way to the point where the hinge is basically locked, and then move it together very slowly, I'll get almost no sound. Check it out. On the other hand, if I open it just a few inches and move it very quickly, I'll get a huge sound. So dynamics and timbre on slapstick are all about velocity, not distance. You can also change the timbre slightly by choosing what happens after the impact. Listen to the sound when I leave the boards together after impact. And now here's the sound when we actually pull the boards apart and rebound the strike after the impact. Both options are totally correct. So leaving the boards together gives a slightly drier sound, which is great for single isolated notes. And then letting them rebound fully gives more resonance to the sound, and it also allows you to move faster in rhythmic passages. So I encourage you to experiment and decide what works best in your hall and ensemble, and especially what works best for the passage you're performing. Many of our most famous slapstick moments are single isolated hits where timing is absolutely everything. Just like the giant hammer blows in Mahler's Sixth Symphony, you have to start actually moving before the intended note so that the sound happens exactly on time. As I said before, never allow the visual drama of the slapstick motion to make you late for your note. The audience should see the motion, but the orchestra needs to feel the sound land exactly where it's supposed to go. Now, I'll be the first to admit that slapstick is actually one of those instruments that doesn't need nearly as much daily maintenance practice compared to some of our other percussion instruments. However, when you're first getting started, it's a good idea to spend some quality time with this instrument and get used to how it feels in your hands. Now, the best way to do that is just by practicing some of the orchestral excerpts that we'll play later in this video, but let's try a quick exercise to work on our rhythmic agility with the slapstick. Let's start with a very simple 16th note timing exercise. Now let's try a quick exercise where we actually try moving different sides of the slapstick. In most situations, I think of both hands having a 50-50 role in the motion of the stroke. However, for certain quick passages, I'll sometimes leave one hand stationary and a single hand will initiate the motion. So let's take a slow tempo and try a really basic rhythm, and we'll have both hands move equally for the stroke. Then just the right hand will move while the left hand is stationary, and then the left hand will move while the right hand is stationary. Let's try that. Once again, these exercises don't need to be practiced every day, but when you're first getting started, it's going to help you build speed on the instrument and build that consistency and coordination without relying on brute force. And always focus on even timing, clean contact, and a relaxed motion. Now that we're familiar with this instrument, let's take a look at some orchestral passages. The most iconic slapstick moment by far is, of course, Leroy Anderson's Sleigh Ride. We've already discussed this earlier in the video. However, there are quite a few other slapstick moments in the standard orchestral repertoire. For example, in the Nutcracker by Tchaikovsky, there's a famous gunshot moment that's played by the percussionist, and usually people will play it as a rim shot on snare drum. However, I actually like using the slapstick for this moment. To me personally, I think it's funnier and it fits the choreography on stage a bit better. This instrument sounds more like a toy gun rather than a real shotgun of a rim shot on a snare drum. So this actually matches better with the toy soldiers shooting their toy gun at the rat on stage. Mahler's Fifth Symphony has a pretty fast slapstick passage where the instrument mimics the rhythmic motives we've heard earlier in the movement. First, it's played in the glockenspiel, then in the slapstick, and then later we hear it in the bass drum. In passages like this, efficiency of motion is critical. This passage can also go extremely fast with certain conductors, so it's important to practice this at a variety of tempos. Rather than playing the slapstick directly in front of me, I tend to turn it a little more flat so that I can focus on my dominant arm driving the rhythm. The Gershwin Piano Concerto in F also features slapstick in a really fun rhythmic way. In this passage, clarity and groove really matter. In our music hall here in Tucson, I have to anticipate this passage slightly, placing each note on the very front of the beat, since there's so much distance between me at the back of the stage and the piano soloist at the front of the stage. The piano plays a quick 2-bar intro, and then the slapstick comes in, accentuating the first and fourth 16th note of the beat. And what I'm thinking of the whole time is a shorter note where I open, and then I dig in and accent a little bit more on that second note, leaving the slapstick together after the strike. So open, close, open, close. It sounds like this. So that's an overview of slapstick fundamentals using the Black Swamp's new Overture Series Slapstick. This particular instrument delivers a professional sound while remaining safe, comfortable, and accessible for players at any level. Now, remember to focus on safety, velocity-based dynamics, and precise timing, and the slapstick will become one of the most fun and effective colors in your percussion section. Thanks so much for watching, and be sure to check out the other videos in the Overture series, including woodblocks, castanets, triangle, tambourine, and more.